Initiating system 1. System 1 loaded.
That is Windows versus Linux. Mac boys, you may be wondering why I am leaving Mac from this list, because Mac is different when compared to Windows and Linux. So this video is the battle between Windows and Linux. So here I will be discussing with you the things which differentiates both the operating systems, and at last I will tell you which one is the superior operating systems between the two. So as usual, let us step into the video. The first main thing which differentiates both the operating system is the type. Okay, you may be wondering, what am I trying to say about the type of the operating system? Well, here's the thing. When it comes to Windows, in this case Windows is the perfect example for a closed source operating system, but Linux is another type. It's the perfect example of an open source operating system. This may sound weird, closed source, open source. A closed source operating system is actually a software. All the operating systems are actually system software, so a closed source operating system has some restrictions of usage. It is not actually provided to the public for usage. A closed source operating system's ownership and editing privileges and modifying privileges are only specified to the person, that is who the developer, the person who developed the operating system. But in case of open source software or an open source operating system, anyone can do anything with the software or the operating system. Well, in this case, you can do anything with Linux. You can even edit the source code of Linux, but in case of Windows, the source code is sealed and it is actually illegal to edit the code. Only Microsoft has the prior legal rights or the privilege to edit and modify the source code of the operating system. So that's the type, that's the thing which differentiates the type of both the operating systems. For example, you can equate Windows to a closed vault, that is a closed locker. In case of Windows, you actually know the password for opening the vault, but you cannot take anything from inside the vault. You can just see the things inside the vault or the locker. But in case of Linux, it's an open vault. It doesn't have a password itself. You can just open the vault and you can see the things. You can even change or edit the things from inside the locker. So I think this example is a little lame, but it suits this case. So the next thing which differentiates both the operating system is the distributors. Well, you may be wondering what a distributor means. Well, here's the explanation part. A distributor is a person who distributes things. But in case of this operating system stuffs, when it comes to Windows, Microsoft is the one and only sole distributor of Windows. Microsoft has the right to develop, to edit, to modify, to advertise, to promote, to sell, and to redistribute or to distribute Windows. And you cannot do such things with Windows without getting prior permission from Microsoft. So that's illegal. So don't try to do such things with the closed source operating system. And when it comes to Linux, actually Linux has a hell lot of distributors. Linux has more than 50 to 100 distributors, or even more distributors, I think. And in that list, only 10 to 20 distributors are the most popular distributors in the world. I use Ubuntu version of Linux. That is, this case, Linux is distributed to me by Ubuntu. And there are even more popular distributors like Debian Linux, Mint Linux, Arch Linux, Red Hat Linux. So that's the thing with the distributor. Even if you want to be a distributor of Linux, you just need to do some things like you need to acquire the general public license, that is GPL for Linux, and you need to know some programming stuffs, some advanced programming stuffs. You need to learn some things about operating system, and yeah, you're on the go. You can just develop you can just create your own version of Linux and you can distribute it. That's it about the distributors. So the next main thing, the most important thing, the most frustrating thing, the most thing which differentiates both the operating system is the mode of purchase or the price of the operating system. When this price thing comes to Windows, you need to pay a sum of about $120, around $120 to purchase the license for Windows. But in case of Linux, as it's an open source operating system free for the public, you can have a free version of any Linux operating system. You can download, you can just click on the download button inside a Linux distributor's official site to just get the operating system from them. And most of the Linux distributors doesn't compel you to pay for their operating system. So Linux is about 95% free of cost. And the remaining 5%, when I'm coming to it, some of the Linux distributors may charge you to download their operating system, because that's not actually an illegal thing. they might have added some extraordinary unique features to their own Linux distribution version. So yeah, surely, definitely they need their own credits for that. So when it comes to Ubuntu, you can either download the free version of Linux, or if you want some support services or some additional add-on services to that Ubuntu Linux, then you need to pay some amount of money for them, but that's not a compulsion or restriction. You can download and use the free version too, but in case if you need some add-on packages, you need to pay for Ubuntu, and this is same in the case of Red Hat Linux too. So now we are going to deal with the most threatening thing, that is the thing which is threatening the whole cyber world, that is the security. When it comes to security, I'm not talking about password security. You may be thinking password or providing a pin or a pattern or a password to your operating system is the best way of protecting it, but no, it's not. Password is just a collection of words which can easily be corrupted, which can easily be cracked, which can easily be bypassed. But in this security stuff, I'm going to talk about malwares. When it comes to Windows has more number of malwares. You can see it. Windows has more than 20 to 30 antivirus softwares, more than 10 popular antivirus softwares. So even from that list of top antivirus softwares, you can just come to a conclusion that Windows has more number of malwares. Malwares means viruses, worms, trojans, and some kind of weird malwares. But in case of Linux doesn't even have an antivirus software. Yeah, it may be surprising, but this is the real world fact. Linux doesn't even have an antivirus software because you don't need one. Linux is it's about 99% secure against malware attacks. When it comes to the security stuff, you may be wondering why Windows has more number of malwares and why Linux is having less number of malwares, and here's the reason behind that. When it comes to Windows, when you are the root administrator of a Windows system, then you have full permission, full privilege to do anything with your system. So just think in the case if a malware tries to access your system, and in the worst case if that malware gains administrator privileges, then just think about the security level of your system. Boom, it's gone. That's it. If a malware gets the administrator privilege of your Windows system, it can easily breach your internal security. It can even send your personal anonymous data to someone who is in control of the malware. When it comes to Linux doesn't have anything like an administrative privilege. Even if you are the person who install Linux in that system, then sadly you are not the administrator of the system. So even you are not the administrator of the system, then how come a malware can gain the administrator privileges of the Linux system? In case of Linux system, the Linux operating system is itself the administrator of the system, and you need to work really hard to break the security of Linux systems. So Linux is completely secure, that is 99% secure, because nothing in the world is 100% secure. So when it comes to security, Linux is the best. The next thing is the usage level of both the operating system. When it comes to usage, sadly Linux has only less number of users. No offense, but yeah, that's the true world fact. When it comes to Windows, more than 85% of the computer users use Windows as their primary operating system in the system, and only 0.5% to 1% of the computer users use Linux as their primary operating system, and that's really a sad thing, and there is a reason for this thing, but let me show you a sample first. You can see here, this is the analytics data for my channel. My channel doesn't have that amount of view counts, but anyway, even with that little view count, you can note that Windows users view my channel the most. That is, more than 97% of my channel viewers are Windows users. And when it comes to Mac, it has 2.5%, and when it comes to Linux, sadly it has only 0.8%, and this is the 1 month analytics of my channel, so just estimate from that. And Linux has less number of users. Yeah, that's the fact. And here's the main reason why Linux is used less, and that thing is the availability of applications for Linux. Linux has only less number of applications, that is popular applications. When it comes to Windows has really lot of softwares and apps for its usage, but Linux doesn't have that much number of softwares, so you cannot have all the softwares in your Linux system when compared to your Windows system. For example, take popular softwares like Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Adobe After Effects, Sony Vegas, Sony Smart Sound Studio, then other softwares like YouTube Downloader and some other popular softwares. I know only some popular softwares. Those softwares are available only for Windows, but those things are not available for Linux users. And the next main thing is that if you are a gamer, then now Linux is definitely not the suitable operating system for you, because Linux doesn't have that much popular game count. And when it comes to games, most of the popular games, not most, none of the popular games are trending now or available for Linux, and there is not even a platform in the game section called as Linux. So sadly, no gamers use Linux as their primary operating system. That's another reason. So these two are the main reasons. And another reason is that Linux doesn't have that much popularity among users because Linux don't advertise their operating system. So these are the things with the usage limit of Linux and Windows. The next thing is, you may be wondering which operating system you should have, or whether you should have a Windows PC or a Linux PC. And here's the answer for your question. If you are a programmer or a programmer come developer or a hacker, then Linux is the candy land for you. Yeah, Linux has all the programming language SDK packages, and it has all the hacking packages. As it's an open source operating system, it has a lot of hacking packages and hacking scripts. So if you are a programmer or a hacker or a developer, then Linux is perfectly suitable for you. But if you are a frequent video editor, audio editor, musician, artist, gamer, then don't use Linux, because Linux will definitely drive you mad, because it doesn't have that much software count for gamers, video editors and audio editors and some other users. So if you come under this category, then Linux is not suitable for you. So that's it about the battle between Windows and Linux. The unknown fact is that actually Linux has more number of users in many indirect ways. Yeah, I showed my channel statistics before, and I showed it for computer devices. So now I'm going to show you for smartphone devices. When it comes to smartphone, obviously Android gets the first place in the channel statistics, and in every other analytics and statistics, Android gets the first place. And by the way, Android is a Linux based operating system. If you know or not, yeah, Android is a Linux based operating system, and Android is purely based on Linux platform. So in that way, Linux is used a lot amount. And the other thing is that everyone uses YouTube